Welcome to another episode of Sustainability for Kids podcast. Today, I am with Maura Pierlot, and she is an international award-winning children's book author, and she is also a playwright and filmmaker based in Canberra, Australia. Her work across art forms explores the complex intersection between identity, self, and belonging. Maura has a PhD in philosophy, and she has worked developing ethical policies across the health sector. She is also editor of Australian Medicine, medical writer, producer, and business owner. Besides writing full-time, Maura visits schools and libraries as a guest reader and speaker. She recently launched a book called Clutter Bugs, which we are going to be talking today, and is a wonderful story of Steff, who can find Jay's birthday present in her very messy room. Then, strange creatures called Clutter Bugs come to the rescue, helping her discover the most meaningful gift of all: how to become more environmentally conscious. Welcome to the show, Maura. It is a pleasure to meet you.
Welcome, Annalie. It's so great to be here.
Let's get into the questions, Maura. And I just want to know and let the audience know all the story behind your book, Clutterbugs.
Well, Clutterbugs started from a very basic belief that we have too much stuff. I think I've felt like that for quite a long time, but especially lately. In fact, when I started writing the book, it was originally called Steff's Stuff. And I had this image of a child waking up one morning and her room is so messy and she has so many things that she doesn't really need that she can't see the carpet or the door or anything in her room. So that's where, often when I start a book or a new project, sometimes it's a word or a phrase that comes to me, and sometimes it's just an image. And I definitely had an image of a child being buried by all her belongings.
I could send you a picture of my daughter's room.
We have 3 kids, and they're in their early to mid-20s now, and they're very, very, very messy. So is my husband, I should say. But now that they're older and they've moved out to their own places, I actually have to take my shoes off when I go to visit them.
Oh,
so that's the irony. They became very neat as they got older, but when they were younger, and my daughter, we have 2 boys and a girl. The girl is the youngest. My daughter is messier. She'll hate me saying this, but it's true. Messier than the 2 boys combined.
So perhaps just take us through what was the inspiration. Yeah. So you mentioned a picture and, that image that comes to mind whenever you're studying a project. But in this particular topic and related to sustainability, what was your inspiration? So what made you, talk about this topic and write about recycling and repurposing, and particularly for kids?
Yeah, true. Well, I think the main thought that I had when I started writing the project was that there's a huge difference between what we want and what we need. And I had this sense that the more belongings we had, somehow the less content we were. And that seems not really predictable. It's somewhat ironic because these days, particularly with internet, social media, everywhere we go, everywhere we look in some form of media, we're hit up with some notion that we need to have such and such, a new toy, a new computer, the best phone. We're just surrounded by a constant demand to accumulate a lot of goods, irrespective of whether we want or need them. For kids, I think it's important to just try to embrace at an early age that having more isn't necessarily better. And the issue becomes, once you have things, how do you dispose of them? We've become a consumerist, disposable society. We don't like something, we throw it out. And we don't often think day to day, well, what happens once it leaves our hands? Where does it go? We just conveniently overlook that because we're so busy doing other things. But if we trace the journey of that belonging that we might not have even needed in the first place, but wanted, and even for things we do need, once it leaves our hands, there are so many more responsible ways that we can dispose of something. We can donate to a charitable organization. We can source friends or people in our community who might need or just want or just like to have a toy that perhaps my daughter no longer needed or had any interest in, but someone her age or younger, might love that toy. Instead, we tend to just throw things in the trash, and we think that we're doing our bit for the environment when we separate into color bins, which we are. But there's so much more that we can do. And I guess Clutterbugs was my way of developing a fun, kind of zany adventure to engage kids and young readers and to help them realize that they have choices, they have freedom to make good decisions that will not only help themselves and their family and their community, but the planet that we live in. So that's how Clutterbugs came about.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if we refer back to the book, what did Steff do when she didn't find Jay's present?
What did she do when she couldn't find? Well, she started ripping through her room like a tornado. And that's usually what happens. And that's definitely based on real life, because I have 3 kids who I say kids again in their 20s, still a little bit forgetful. But when they were younger, the moment something was in their hands and the next moment it seemed to be out of their hands and they were looking for it. Where's my hat? Where's my book? Where's my key? Where did I just place something? I don't believe they had a lot of things. We tried very hard not to accumulate a lot, but there's really no easy way you cannot accumulate more than you need in today's society. So their rooms, right or wrong, were very messy. And there's probably a difference. It's maybe worth noting. There's a difference between clutter and mess. I think, at least. People might disagree. For me, mess is, things should be they have a home, but they're not in their home. They're just all over the floor. You're looking for something, you're in a hurry, you're just throwing things out, you want to quickly get changed, but rather than put clothes in a hamper or hang them up, you just toss them on your bed, on the floor. That's mess. And yes, the book does address that. How to take more personal responsibility for your belongings, which costs money, and want to last as long as possible so that you can use them and enjoy their use. But then there's also clutter. And when I think of clutter, I think of a lot of probably personal objects that might have meaning, but don't really serve any practical purpose. So even as a decorating style, you could go into someone's house and they might just have a very minimalist environment, clean lines, maybe one photo framed, maybe a lovely vase on a kitchen bench. Or you can go into a house where there's lots of things. And you can probably tell, looking in my office with all of these little things I have on my shelf, that I tend to like clutter. I think it's because I grew up in another country. I moved to Australia in my 30s, and that was quite a while ago. But I think the farther you are from your natural home, you tend to hold on to objects because they might have meaning and memory. And sometimes you hold on to too many objects. So I'm guilty of being a clutter bug, although as I get older, I'm learning to, I guess, balance and hold on to the things that I cherish, but streamline and get rid of things and donate and recycle and repurpose the things that I no longer need.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that was the message I got after reading your book. How in that very creative way, you put that story to teach kids about, having that responsibility of selecting what they want to keep, what they want to donate, and, even repurpose and in this case, Steph created a new toy for her friend, and that's amazing. I think is important, as you said, that from very early age we as parents teach our kids to kind of have those behaviors and responsibility as well.
Well, and the interesting thing is, in the story, her friend Jay loves her gift the most. I think because he sees, I guess, the emotion that she created the gift with, the fact that she took the time, that she created something with him in mind specifically, which is a bit more mindful than going to the shop, getting the latest rocket, grabbing a book, that'll do. We often made gifts when I was growing up, and that might have just been a sign of the times. We also didn't have a lot of money to burn, so it just wasn't an option. And kids go to a lot of birthday parties. It seemed like every weekend one of our kids was going to a birthday party. So it definitely adds up. But for us, we grew up with the notion that if you want to give someone something, the best thing you could do is give them something from your heart. So I would make candles. We would melt crayons, and then we would put flowers in them, and we put them in a pretty jar. For girls love those things growing up. Or I would make a book for friends. No one seems to really do that anymore, but I guess the book, in addition to looking at clutter and environmental issues, not accumulating so much, disposing and repurposing items, it also looks at the true meaning of gift giving and the true meaning of friendship in a very gentle, nuanced way.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So since you launched the book, what is your experience on feedback, I guess, that parents and kids are giving you, and how are they responding to the story, and what do they tell you?
Well, the book actually hasn't been launched yet. It comes out 1st of April. But the good news is we sent copies to quite a few families and reviewers and book bloggers, and those reviews are just starting to come in. We haven't posted many of them, just really a handful. And they all seem to overwhelmingly, and this is music to my ears, they all seem to love the book, mainly because it's so highly relatable. They're saying, oh my goodness, it's like if I open the door to my child's bedroom right now, that is their room. We were just talking about this last night at dinner. So it's very timely. I think it's very relatable. It actually dovetails very nicely with a lot of the sustainability curriculum, things that kids are learning at school. And that was important to me too. There's so many ways you can learn. You can learn at school, and in my day, thankfully, it's not like this now. But in my day, you were very passive in school. You sat in rows, and the teacher talked, and you just listened. And let's just hope it would sink in, and you would hope you would remember it. These days, it's much more interactive. But you can read a book if you're a big reader. Nonfiction, you could have experiences, and you go out into the world and you learn from that. But I love when it's possible to learn just through the power of story, because I think if there is a story, even though it's made up, so it's fiction, if there's a story, children can relate not only to the characters, but to the issues being explored. So it's a very powerful way that they can tap into their own emotions. They can see themselves on the page. And then as agents on the page, they can see how that can translate to their life. So the view seems to be that children are responding very strongly to the scenario of having a messy room, of not knowing what to do with your belongings, of wanting to do something better, to be responsible and to help look after the planet, and to actually do something meaningful with your friends when it comes to something like a birthday celebration. So yeah, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, no, that is great. It reminded me, my daughter she has a, she calls it the box of special things, and the box started, with a small box, and now it's grown and it's bigger, and so she could put more things in it.
Is it like a
But
memory box that she'll keep?
Sort of, yeah, sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Soon it'll be
So I said,
as big as her room.
so then I said to her one day, well, like, the box can't grow anymore, okay? we leave it as it is.
The ever expanding box, like an accordion. Yes, that would be a good story, actually. There, you should write that one.
Yeah. So we're getting to the end of the interview, Maura, but I want to give you the opportunity to share a message with our audience. It might be, a message about, the story that you just, launched with your book, or in general, what could you kind of, influence parents and kids to do better for the environment, as you said before, improve those habits, daily habits, and in general, how can we do better for the planet?
Well, I think what I'd like to say, just in closing to wrap everything up, is I think children sometimes think, well, what can I do? I'm just a kid. I'm just young. So I'll just wait till I grow up and then it'll probably be obvious. But kids are actually natural change makers. They have a sense of innate wonder and curiosity. They're not tainted by all the things that adults are. So they haven't necessarily learned any bad habits yet. Children have choice and they have agency. And I think it's important for kids to realize that the decisions they make, no matter how small and insignificant they might seem, are actually potentially very powerful and can change not only how they feel about themselves, but people in their community and also the world to a larger extent. So when you look at it from an environmental point of view, a lot of times we think, oh, let's save the environment, protect the environment. It's very faddish. It's like a fancy, fashionable thing. But there's a difference between wanting to do something as a concept and making a decision that I'm going to actively do that through the choices I make. So I'm actually going to always have this in the back of my mind. And it could be when you're brushing your teeth, not leaving the water running. It could be not wanting so many things and being a little bit more choosy about the things that you get. It could be when it's time to change the things you have, you've outgrown them or no longer need them or no longer want them, rather than just tossing them in the trash, to think, how can I be responsible? Who would enjoy this? This object has another life. It has a very long life. Who's its next owner going to be? And that's like a story in itself. It could be riding a bike or taking public transport rather than asking your mom or dad to drop you off somewhere. So there's all these little micro choices every day that we can make that are so simple if we have the mindset and we keep it first and foremost. So it's being mindful about your environment, making a commitment to yourself to be responsible and do the right thing, maybe encouraging your friends and family to do the same, and then enjoying the fruits of that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the base, also, living in a more sustainable way, is the power of all those small steps, which is very powerful. Well, Maura, thank you so much for being with us today. Truly enjoyed the conversation. All the best with the book and the launch. Please continue doing what you're doing. It's amazing. I love the topic of Clutterbugs. And all the best. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Annalie, for having me. And thanks so much for the wonderful work that you're doing at Sustainability for Kids. It's terrific. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.